In this video, we're going to be going over what are the new best perks to be using inside Warzone Season 5 after we've got some new additions and some changes to existing perks. If you enjoy epistat breakdowns and overall tips and tricks for Warzone, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we'll try to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to go over what the changes are, and then we'll also go over what are the best perks now to use. So quickly, let's go over some changes. So in perk slot 1, what has changed here is cold-blooded now. It still does what I did before, which is keeping you undetectable by targeting systems, also thermal optics as well. But now it doesn't trigger high alert, and it also negates combat scout. So now it actually has a good counter to the game because combat scout's one of the new perks that were added. Then in perk slot 2, we also have tempered. Now this is one of the new perks that got added in. And essentially what this does is it refills your armor plates with 2 instead of 3. Now what this means for yourself is it means you're going to plate up quicker because you don't need to plate up 3 armor plates, you only need to do 2. And it also makes your plates last a lot longer as well because again you only need to use 2 instead of 3. So it is a really good perk, and this is probably one I would choose to use over Ghost personally, but we'll need to see how the game kind of plays out a little bit. Also, the other change that happened inside perk slot 2 is actually high alert. So now your vision pulses when enemies are outside of your view can see you. So that is what I did before. But also footsteps from dead silence players would be audible just like normal. So we will need to test this in game to see how it works. So just to quickly interrupt this video, this tweet came out just as I was editing this video right now. So it's pretty recent as this tweet. But as you can see, it says some of you have already noticed the change to the high alert perk, because as I've just shown you in game, it states that it does the new change that allows you to hear dead silence. But in the description, it suggests you'll be able to hear dead silence. This is true, which will be true in the future, of course, not right now, because it currently doesn't work because the update's not live yet. So this update, just in case you're trying to test this out inside the game at the moment, has not actually went live for any of the players just yet. So hopefully this comes out fairly soon. They have just tweeted it out. I don't know what soon means, whether it's later on today. We don't really know when it comes to Raven Software what soon means, but hopefully it does come out because it wasn't actually in the patch notes from earlier on as well. So that's something we do need to keep in mind. But pretty much you'll hear dead silence players. So this is going to be another really good perk to use. So perk slot 2 is highly competitive at the moment with some really good perks. Now in perk slot 3, the only real change and addition we've had to this is combat scout. So damaging an enemy player will briefly highlight them for you and marks them for your entire squad. So what that means is instead of you having to ping them yourself, it will ping automatically, and then also it will highlight them if they're going into a building or whatever it is, and you'll kind of see if they're trying to camp in that building. So now when it comes to what are the best perks, so double time has always been quite popular just because it's one of the first perks you unlock, but if you know how to slide cancel, double time is not really that viable, to be completely honest. It can be useful for people who don't know how to do that, but most people should learn. EOD is still going to be one of the better perks because it gives you less damage from explosives. If you're camping buildings, this is probably one of the best perks to use, to be completely honest. Then you've got Scavenger. This is not going to get used anymore. Well, I don't think it ever got used to begin with. Cold-blooded is now a really viable perk, especially because it counters the high alert as well as the combat scout. So I think this is going to be really good because more people will be using combat scout and high alert. Combat scout mainly just because it's a new perk, people want to try it out, but high alert is now a really viable perk. So I think cold-blooded is actually going to be a really good option, especially for your second loadout. So you take cold-blooded, ghost, and then maybe amped or something. Kill chain is not going to get used in Quickfix. It's still pretty decent, but I do feel like they should give this perk a little bit of a buff. So for perk slot 1, just to quickly recap, EOD, cold-blooded, and Quickfix. Moving on into perk slot 2 now, this is where there's so many viable options inside the perk slot 2. So restocked is pretty decent. Restocked has always been a really good perk to use. It's not like super powerful, but it does allow you to have constant stuns and constant semtexes all of the time. So it's very viable, especially if you need them to help you win gunfights. So restocked is still going to be very viable. Hardline, no one's going to use. Tempered is going to be a really good perk. I think this is going to help people, its plates last a lot longer. So I'm going to start using this perk myself. Overkill, we all know everyone picks Overkill for the first loadout, and I still don't think that's going to change at all. Everyone's going to go Overkill, then maybe Ghost or Tempered after that. High Alert, I think High Alert is still going to be a really good perk as well. It's going to be a really tough choice for perk slot 2 now, especially being able to hear the dead silence players. I think that's a really good thing about High Alert. I don't know if people would start picking this just because of the vision pulsing thing. I find it quite annoying, so I wouldn't choose High Alert based off of that fact. I wish you could get the dead silence hearing and without the other things, so it's going to really depend on what you feel about this perk overall, because I don't like the vision pulsing around my screen. I think it's a bit annoying. And then we've got Ghost, and we all know what Ghost does. Ghost is allowing you to stay off heartbeat sensors and UAVs. I still think this is going to be one of the better perks to use. And then lastly, we've got Point Man, and again, no one's really going to use this at all. So what we've got here for perk slot 2 is very competitive, like I said. So we've got Restocked, Tempered, Overkill, High Alert, and Ghost. All these sound very viable for Warzone. And we'll just need to wait and see how it kind of plays out, because Tempered does sound like a really good perk to use, but also the changes to High Alert makes that very viable too. So in perk slot 3, and I think this is actually the weakest perk slot in my opinion, we've got Tune Up, which allows you to revive teammates much quicker by 25%, which is pretty useful, but no one really uses this because sometimes it's not really viable to revive teammates all the time. You might want to let them die. You could buy them back from buy stations. Amped is what everyone that plays aggressively uses pretty much, because it allows you to swap weapons quicker, especially if you're using 2 primary weapons. Combat Scout is a new perk which highlights enemies. Like I said, the powerfulness of this perk is going to depend on how long it is that you get the effect for it. You can see the enemy player. If it's long, then it's going to be quite powerful. If it's not so long, it's going to be pretty much useless. Shrapnel doesn't get used. Battle Harden doesn't really get used either, because it doesn't really help with stuns and flashes all that much inside Warzone. By the time you're flash and stunned, you're pretty much going to be dead anyway, so Battle Harden's not really that useful. Spotter is an okay perk, like I mentioned in a previous video, but it's not really one of the better perks to be using. And Tracker's pretty decent if you're playing Rebirth, but inside Verdansk is not really that good. So realistically, the best perks here are Tracker, maybe Combat Scout, and then Amped again. So the perks that I'll be trying out with this new update is Cold-Blooded, Tempered, and then Amped. Now, I'm going to choose Cold-Blooded because I feel like a lot of people will start using High Alert and Combat Scout because there's some of the new changes that have taken place with this update. So people will be using High Alert and Combat Scout, so this will kind of counteract that. Then I'm using Tempered because I like to play aggressively. I want my armor plates to last a lot longer and to plate up quicker technically as well. So this is going to be a super viable option, especially if you play aggressively. And then we've got Amped as well. Right, I don't like Combat Scout's going to be that powerful, and I feel like most people will still use Amped anyway. So I do think that Amped is going to be the most powerful perk 3 slot. And those are the best perks to be using inside Warzone after the Season 5 update. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we try to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers. And click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel. And thank you very much for watching.